Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Poema Podcast. I am James Prescott. I am the normal host of this podcast. This is the 400th episode of this
Ooh,
podcast. And I started the podcast in around September 2015. And it's now, the day that we're recording is in October 2025. And we're up to the 400th episode. And I'm a bit blown away because I never thought I'd end up doing 400 episodes. Yeah, although more than that because there's going to be more episodes, obviously. And I didn't think it would go for 10 years or longer. Obviously, it's going to be longer eventually. So this is pretty awesome. And we're going to do our normal thing when we have a kind of anniversary episode or a milestone episode where I'm going to have a guest host who's going to interview me. Now, the last few times it's been my friend Becky, who has done it a few times, and she's great, and she's been on the podcast recently, and we are still good friends. But I thought it might be nice for someone else to do it. She's done it a couple of times, so I asked my friend MJ, who's been on the podcast before, and is a really good friend of mine, to interview me, and it's going to be on things that I haven't talked about before on the show. So it's not going to be like the same stuff regurgitated. It's going to be different stuff, new stuff, things that I haven't shared before or talked about before. So, yes, MJ, welcome back. And I'm going to hand over to you.
thanks. Hey, welcome to your 400th episode, James.
Thank you.
Nice to have you.
Yes, it's nice to be a guest on my I'm so glad I invited myself. Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited for you to be here. And yeah, I'm happy to interview you.
Yeah.
Particularly, I'm excited to be at the crux of the 400th episode with you. I think that's a big milestone.
Yes, it is a big milestone. And like I said, I didn't really think about it when I started. Like, it's very different to how I started writing. Because when I started writing, I had all these goals and stuff, and we'll talk about that later. But when I started doing this, it was more like I was just curious about what it would be like to do a podcast, and and what that would look like, and how to do something kind of creative with it that other people weren't doing, and also podcasts weren't that big at the time. Nowadays, everyone's got a podcast.
I
10
don't.
years ago, like, nobody had a podcast. It wasn't a big thing. Like, it was this whole
Yeah.
medium that people were exploring. So it was really interesting back then, and I haven't really changed my style. Like, I want to keep it authentic, and I don't want to ask people to pay for it, and I don't, and as much as I wish I had the budget for doing this in a studio like other people do now, and across the table and the sofa and stuff, I don't have the budget to do that, unfortunately. If someone's willing to sponsor me to do that and to pay me to do this podcast, that'd be great. But I want this podcast to be accessible for everyone. But so I wouldn't ask any regular people to pay for it anyway. But yeah, it's strange to get to 400 episodes. In 10 years doing the same thing. We just finished watching Smallville together. That went on for 10
We
years.
did. Yeah.
And that was like, how many episodes was that? 200. 200 and something, yeah. So we've done more episodes than Smallville in 10 years.
Wow.
Yes, Smallville, of course, because I love Superman. So
We'll get into that too. Yeah,
of course.
of
Yeah, of course. Can't go through with me not talking about Superman. Of course, we can't do that. So no. So it's crazy. Like I feel very privileged, and I love doing it. I still love doing it, and that's why I keep doing it.
Well, I think a couple of things. As someone who loves listening to your podcast and as someone who's a dear friend, I think that it is evident that you love doing it. It comes across in your episodes. And then also, it is not an entirely a rare gem. There are other podcasts that are also free, but it is something that is highly beneficial to us as your listeners, that your podcast is accessible and is always going to be accessible. So yes, as someone who loves your podcast, I am also going to be here saying it would be great if someone listening would love to sponsor your podcast and help continue to make it as accessible as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah. like money to produce it every year so that I could
A shameless plug.
for free. Yeah, shameless plug. Like yeah.
But regardless, let's dive into the 400th episode. I do think that one of the things when you first asked me if I'd be willing to interview you, even before jumping into, oh, what are all the questions we could ask? What are all the topics we could get into? Just thinking about the 400th episode, the number for itself was something that excited me, and when I told you that, and I told you about even talking about numerology, I know that that potentially excited you. Talking about that a little bit earlier today. But a couple of thoughts to mull over and maybe go on a tangent here is just the number for itself and the 400th episode. Here are some things to think about. In tarot, the number 4 often has feelings or themes of stability and stabilization, security, or potential concerns of stagnation. If someone's been sitting in their stability for too long. And in the major arcana, the number 4 is for the Emperor card. The Emperor has themes of structure and control, sometimes authority, but also good feelings of dependability and being a grounded protector for others. And then in astrology, I am an astro girly, but I am not an astrologist. So if you want to get into this more, you're going to have to go talk to somebody who has way more knowledge than me. But the number 4 has a lot of themes around balance, especially with those 4 major elements being in balance together. But then also, if you think about the 4th house itself, being in Cancer, ruled by the moon, there's a lot of themes around your origins being related to the 4th house, like your life from birth, as well as your ancestral roots. So I love that our 400th episode gets to be focused. It's a perfect time to reflect on where you've been, where you've come from, how you feel about your future, and even thinking about where you are right now. You can choose whether or not you want to get too personal about your personal life, but I know that you've kind of moved into a little bit more of a stable moment for yourself. So, yeah, I would love to know. Thinking about the number 4, what we just talked about, any little tidbits or thoughts you have there?
Well, yeah, I mean, my life has changed a lot in the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've hidden the fact that I got married.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
you didn't.
I got married last year, and it's been a difficult. Well, it's more 18 months now, really.
Yeah.
It's been a difficult time because we were apart for a lot of that the first year because of immigration
Mm-hmm.
and things like Donald Trump.
Yeah, my country. Yeah.
Uh, and all of those kind of things and finances and things just keeping us apart. We kept in touch. We're very good. Our relationship was long distance from the start anyway, so we were very good at doing that. But it was a lot of stress because there was a lot of anxiety about things, about being able to move here and getting jobs here and getting all the things that we need to do, legal stuff to do to move here. And so that's been a very stressful year. And I moved house like 3 times in the last
Yeah.
year, which is like moving house is one of the most stressful things you can do. And I did it 3 times a year. So, so it was a difficult year, and obviously it's like a transitional time. We're like coming to the end of that transition, I think. We're now settled in a house and jobs and things, and it's a bit better, a bit calmer, and obviously getting more
Mm-hmm.
time together. So it's like, yeah, it's been kind of a lot of transition and
Yeah.
change, but also like it's funny because I've been to obviously had my own wedding where I had a lot
Mm-hmm.
of my family on both sides come, and it was like the first time that those two families had been together, and I'd seen a lot of those people for a long time, and it felt like it was a coming together of families, and a lot of people in my family on my side and even my wife's side as well, like reconnected,
Oh.
and we have a family WhatsApp chat for both sides of the family, like in both sides of my family. That is, doesn't it? Yeah, because of Amanda's family, my wife's family are in America, so it's difficult for them to be part of that. But yeah, like having a group chat with both sides of my family
Mm-hmm.
my mum's part and my dad's part. Like it's pretty cool. And then I went to my cousin's eldest's wedding this year, which was our first wedding together since we got married. And again, I connected again with parts of my mother's family, my late mother. Everyone who listens to this show knows my mother passed away 25 years ago. And especially, I reconnected especially with her brother, my uncle, who's in his 80s now, although you wouldn't know it. And he's still like he and his wife were the last people on the dance floor at my wedding.
Oh, yeah.
Midnight, like I
I
was
remember that.
in his kilt and stuff. Brilliant. I was like, that is a live soul, with your wife at a wedding at midnight when you're in your 80s. That's life goals. But yeah. So there's been there is a bit of a reconnection with my roots a little bit. And there is a place that we've talked about moving to, which in the future, which is I won't say where, but we did some research, and I realised that one of my ancestors actually lived there.
Wow!
Not only was he one of my ancestors, he was actually called James Prescott. Yeah, and he and his wife lived there about 100 years ago in this place that we've been talking about. And there's a settlement called Prescott nearby as well. I know.
Your listeners can't see me right now, but my hands are on the top of my head and my jaw is on the floor.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, James!
Is it my grandfather's brother or my grandfather's uncle? I can't one of those two, but grandfather's. I think my grandfather's uncle. Yeah, so my great uncle or something. And James is a name that actually goes back in my family quite a lot. There's been a few James Prescotts. So I didn't know this for the last.
This is the next thing I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about your name. I also wanted to talk about the podcast name. It feels like a great thing to just revisit. But your name specifically, and now knowing that you have this ancestor with the same, I love this. I love the meanings of names in general, the convention of names and naming, but especially thinking about how we've been called by loved ones and peers and even our bullies and how it impacts us. What has been your journey with your name? Have you always been James? Were you ever a Jim, a Jimmy, a whatever? Tell me about that.
I was always James. I think when my mum got pregnant, I think they had two names that they were going to choose from. And it was James or Stuart.
Stuart.
Yeah. So when they saw me, they thought I was a James.
As an American, Stuart Prescott sounds so posh.
Does it? Really?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound posh to me.
Or at least
James, although I'm a bit biased, I suppose. But yeah, I chose James, and James is. And I didn't know that James had roots in my family actually.
Yeah.
Until about a couple of years ago, I started doing ancestry stuff, and that's really interesting. By the way, if you ever get a chance to do ancestry, do it. It's really interesting. My ancestor's namesake, his wife was called Alice, and my sister was called Alison. So, yeah.
Did your parents know this, or is this just?
I don't think they did.
Oh my gosh!
They might have known that there was a James Prescott in the family at some point, but yeah. I mean, I've always been James. I've never been Jim or Jamie or. I can't stand Jamie. With respect to people who are called Jamie, I don't like it.
It's not for you. Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, and some people have called me Jimmy. Some people have called me Jimbo or and I about 20 years ago when I had this group of friends at the church I was at the time, and they came up with a nickname for me called Press Gang, right? My name's Prescott, right? So there's this TV show called Press Gang in the 80s. And I don't know how it came to be, but they started calling me that. And then it kind of gained all these different variants. Like it was like anything that I did, you just put gang on the end of it and it would become like that. It was like anything like you could think of, gang. Yeah, yeah. Oh, and then it became like PG as well, like with the other. And one of my other best friends called me Prezi as well. Uh, you know, with two S's. And
Do
so
you enjoy that? That's to me that sounds like a cute nickname, like a cutesy,
this is it calls me that actually. Like,
Mm.
yeah, but my dad had nicknames for me as well, which I won't go into because they were funny. They were funny. They weren't
Yeah,
rude or anything inappropriate. They were funny, but I
sure.
don't want to talk about those ones. But like, yeah, my sister's always called me James,
Mm.
generally, and I like James. I like the full name. I don't
What's
the short.
what's interesting is I think I mentioned this right before we started recording is that some of the meanings that have been attributed to the name James have to do with that concept of being a protector,
Mhm.
which is the same thing as that card, the Emperor,
Yeah,
related to the number 4 and this 400th episode. Like it's all
yeah.
the cards are like aligning with this episode and your name right now. It's
One of the
fascinating.
one of the roles I assigned to myself, and it
Hmm.
probably wasn't healthy to do this, by the way, when I first had a major trauma, which I talked about on the show, was that I decided I was the protector of the family, that I was my job to look after everybody and my job to take care of everybody, and if anything went wrong, it's my fault. So yeah, I mean that's had a kind of bad connotation
Sure.
in one sense, but I like the idea of taking care of people and
Yeah.
being kind to people and supporting people and encouraging people and protecting people in that sense, like
Yep.
which is a healthy sense. So yeah, it's an apt name, I think. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And my niece and nephew call me Uncle James, which I like. So I haven't shortened it. So
That's
yeah,
sweet.
yeah. James is and I like the name James. You know, this podcast was actually called James Talks when it first started. I know it's a rubbish name. It's a rubbish name. I can't believe I used that name. It's just I couldn't think of anything. I'm really bad at titles. I'm really bad when I create anything. I'm really bad at like, thinking of titles. Like, and I've never been good at that side of it. So, but yeah, but yeah. So I changed it. And you think you wanted to talk about that next anyway? How the podcast got its name. So
Yeah.
that's the nice
I
segue.
love that it was called James Talks. Like that and even like the concept of not being good at something at first or whatever. I love that you just got started on something and eventually changed the name to whatever it would become. But like even just getting started on something because it needed to get started,
Yes.
regardless of what you called it. Love that. That's a great approach to art. It's a great approach to any type of like
Yeah.
there's
I
no
mean,
need to
yeah.
wait to get started to something until you have the right title or whatever.
Oh yeah, I'm never that kind of person. I just want to
Yeah,
get going.
exactly.
I wanna make stuff. Like yeah, like if I might if I ever write a book again, which I hope I will. Like I'm not going to give it a title until it's finished, probably.
Sure. Yeah.
Also, I think actually giving it a title after it's finished means the title is more reflective of uh,
Mm.
what it is. Like, I mean, you're going to laugh when I say this, but when James Gunn wrote the Superman movie that just came out, originally it was called Superman Legacy, right? And then when he finished the script, he said, "Oh no, this is the wrong title," and they changed it to Superman, and that was it. So that's an example of that, you know. Although he's given a name to the next script that he's written before it's finished, but I'm sure that will be fine. But yeah, so like sometimes yeah, like it's you don't always. Sometimes you know the name of something at the beginning when you make it, but sometimes you don't, and that's fine. You don't
Yeah.
need to know the name. We just need to
So,
work with it. Yeah.
do you feel like when the podcast began, James Talks was actually the appropriate title
Well,
for
yeah.
what it was?
The reason I gave that name was like it was me talking, so like, that's what it was, you know. And I didn't know what the podcast was going to be then. I didn't know it was
Mhm.
going to be an interview-based podcast.
Yeah.
To start with, I was like just writing out like reflections and stuff and narrating
Mhm.
them. And I wanted to have guests, but I didn't know
Mhm.
how to get them.
Mhm.
Uh, like, but I just asked around. I didn't expect to get any answers, and then I
Yeah.
did. You know, people like I was suddenly getting these big authors like saying they wanted to come on my podcast. and that's partly because nobody else was asking. There weren't any other podcasts, and I just got lucky, really. And then I started to make friendships with some of these people, and that's how it started rolling. By the time I got to like 20, 30 episodes, I was getting guests almost every week. So
Yeah.
but it took a while. It took a while, and I think my first interview with a major author, I wasn't very good. And I knew I wasn't, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't bad, right? But it was. I knew it could be a lot better. It's the first time I'd done that, so you have to, again, it's like learning as you go, like learning on the job, not waiting to be perfect.
Sure. Yeah.
And I got better. The more I did it, the more I got better at it. And yeah.
Did James Talks become Poema, or was there another title in
Yeah,
between?
it became that. I didn't. I wanted to change the name, but I didn't know what to change it to. And I talked to some friends, and they suggested this word, poema, because it's from the Greek in the New Testament, where Paul is writing about we are God's workmanship. We're created to do good things, or whatever it is that says. And I thought, this is a word that's about creativity. It's a word that's about spirituality. It's a word that's about our identity. And these are all the things I want to talk about on my show. So I thought, well, I'll just use that name, and I decided to use it, and I've not looked back, and I have thought about changing it a few times, but it's a lot of hassle to change the name of a podcast. You've got to change it on your host. You've got to change it on.
Yeah.
You've got to change it on the on and all the social media and websites and everything, and it's you've got to do a new kind of badge, and also people who listened to it before might get confused, and and it means you've got to start recording episodes with the new name before that new name is actually out in the public.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. I have thought about calling it the Art of Conversation, and if I changed it, it would probably be something like that, because that's really what it's about. But at the moment, it's not changing. But who knows? I mean, I don't know. You never know what's going to happen in the future. I haven't got any plans to change it right now. But that's not to say I won't change it. If it feels like it's the right thing to do, then I'll do it. But I'm not going to do. I wouldn't do it for no reason. It'd have to be a good reason for it.
Yes.
A creative reason, a tonal reason. Something, there has to be some reason for it, rather than just doing it for the sake of it.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's.
I also think that Poema continues to be a good title for your podcast, even if the original reason for naming it is no longer the current reason for its title, or it has expanded its reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing about that title. It encompasses so much. When you think about identity is being neurodivergent. It's being it's your trauma. It's grief. It's all those things that I talk about on the show. They're all mental health. They're all part of our identity, right?
Yeah.
And they're all linked to creativity as well. They impact your creativity, right? And and I still have a spirituality. I'm still very much I don't like calling myself a spiritual person, but I have a spirituality.
Yes.
And it's still very real and very important to me. I'm not religious I don't belong to a religion anymore, but I have a strong sense of spirituality, and of which has expanded over the last 10 years a lot. And obviously we'll talk about that as well. But that's influenced a lot, and it's also representative of me. I mean, the reason I talk about movies on this show is, again, it's creativity, right? It's identity. Movies are about. Good movies are often about identity, about one's personal journey, right? And of course, in comic book movies, it's the hero's journey often. So and story is important to me, and story is about creativity as well. So so it still fits. It still works. so I'm not going to be changing it anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, even if you're talking about like if you were to change it, you would change it to the art of conversation, which I love that concept. And it's interesting because you have been called a great conversationalist,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
among other things, related to how well of a like.
Mm.
I hate to continue to repeat the word conversationalist, but I can't think of other ways to refer to that exact um, skill. But it's that manner of give and take, the manner of active listening, the those skills that you have grown over time, as you've just mentioned. And specifically, I'm going to partially attribute that to your special interest in superheroes. And I'm going to ask you about that. um,
I also want to give a shout out to Amanda Held Opel,
yeah,
who's the one who said that. That she,
I love that. I love that.
about being a great conversationalist, and she's been a great guest, regular guest, and become a friend through grief. It's really
Yeah.
bizarre, you know, because obviously we know what happened with her sister, and
Mhm.
that was very sad. But yeah, we kind of connected through grief and became friends. And she's been on the show loads of times, and hopefully she'll come back again in the future. And yeah. So, but yes, I'm thankful to her for saying that. It's a very kind thing to say.
Oh, it's curious. So there's a similar thread here where you and I became friends through grief because I was going through the loss of my father, and you found and offered a type of empathy that I wasn't finding anywhere else
Oh,
um, by anyone around me, any of my peers, because they, aside from maybe two or three people who I knew who had lost parents at a young age. You were a stranger on the internet who had gone through the same thing and
mhm.
offered a sense of empathy that was just rare. Um,
Thank you.
and so, yeah. And so so my curiosity here is it seems like, from my perspective, this special interest that you've expressed through your podcast, through social media, as I've chatted with you on various platforms now, and then through our friendship. I mean, we just watched all of Smallville. Um,
3 years
I,
watching Smallville from start to finish together.
yes, um,
Like, it was all.
I'm curious about your interest in superheroes when it began, and in what ways you first began to realize that you felt like you had a similarity to them. I think when you and I first talked about it, you recognized what you called an almost like a outsider-ness, like you saw superheroes as outsiders and you identified something like that in yourself.
Yeah, I think. Well, my superhero story began probably when I was 3 or 4. I can't remember when I first saw Superman the movie, the 1978 movie,
Mhm.
Christopher Reeve. Uh, I don't remember the first time I watched it. I was 3 or 4, right at home. It was on video on VHS because it came out. I was only 1 year old when it came out, so obviously I couldn't see it at the
Yeah.
cinema. But like I saw that, and I was captivated by it. Yeah, I was. I think it was this. I think it was just that there was this character who had all these powers, but it wasn't the powers that were the most interesting thing. It was that he was kind and friendly and helped people and didn't have any malice, didn't have any cynicism, didn't have
Mm.
any hidden agenda. He just wanted to be nice to people and help people. And he didn't crave power, political power. He didn't crave control. He didn't crave celebrity. He just wanted to help. And there's a line in the movie where the first rescue, where he rescues a helicopter. And by the way, if you've not seen this movie, you must see this movie. It's one of the best movies ever made. And she asked, "Who are you?" And it's Christopher Reeve that made this. The way he looks at her with full sincerity and gentleness and says, "A friend." Doesn't say, "I am Superman." he just says just says a friend, and that was kind of a. I was, I was a very sensitive, shy, introverted 4-year-old, and I was hypersensitive, and obviously now I know I was on the spectrum as well, which I didn't
Yep.
know at the time. And I think when I saw that, I thought, this is the kind of first, this is a safe person who's not going to bully me or, make fun of me. Who's someone who's going to protect me, I guess. But someone who's a friend and somebody who I kind of want to be like as well. And that was, and there was obviously that sense of like that he feels alone as well because he's the only person from his planet on Earth, the only person with his powers, and he's got to keep it a secret. He's got to keep his identity a secret. He can't tell anyone, and only his adopted parents know about it. And his father dies in the movie, so there's a lot of grief in that, and that that he couldn't save his dad even though he has all these powers. That's kind of the driving force of the movie. That kind of through line, and yeah, I just resonated with that, and I kind of wanted more of that, and I didn't know there were other characters at that point. I didn't know that because that was the only superhero movie that had come out at that point, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I didn't get into Star Wars when I was a kid. I got into Superman, and so I watched all the Superman movies I could. And I couldn't. There were no Superman comics in the UK at that point because they didn't publish them in the UK. They didn't have them in the UK, so I couldn't read Superman comics. But I got like Superman duvet covers. I got Superman T-shirts. I got everything I could find. I loved Superman, and and I started to realize. And obviously, I knew Batman because Batman, the TV show, TV show, was on TV here on reruns in summer holidays. So I used to watch that. That was my first experience of Batman, believe it or not. Not the best interpretation of Batman, but so I knew about Superman and Batman, and there was a Spider-Man cartoon, so I knew about Spider-Man. I didn't know the difference between DC and Marvel at that point. Those are the first three superheroes that I kind of found out about. But Superman was like number one. And I guess I started reading comics, the comics that were that were available anyway. And I think as I got into the mid '80s, late '80s, I was like 8, 9, 10. Then comics started coming to the UK. Comics started getting distributed here, so I started buying them and reading them, and I loved them. Right, and it was like an escape. And my life as a child wasn't easy, as people who listen to this show know. I went through a bit of trauma, like when I was 8 years old, and then from then on, it was a bit of a nightmare. So they were escaped. I went to see Superman 4: The Quest for Peace at the cinema in 1987, and that was my first superhero movie that I saw at the cinema. And it's not the best movie, but I didn't care at the time. I was 10 years old, so it was like, it's a Superman movie. I'm going to watch it, and I enjoyed it, even though it's not a great movie. But there's wonderful bits of it that are great. Like Superman does a few speeches in the movie which are really amazing, and it's Christopher Reeve who went on to become my hero, not just because he was Superman, but because of what he did in his life. And I highly recommend everyone see the documentary about him and his life that came out about a year ago. He was a very inspiring man, he was Superman, really. In terms of what he did in his life. But yeah, so that was how I got into comic books, and then there was Batman, the Tim Burton Batman movie in 1989, which I went to see when I was 12 years old. With actually the guy that became my best man. We went together.
Oh,
And that's when superhero movies really started to happen, right?
Sure, yeah.
And you had a lot of Batman movies, like in the '90s, and you had the late '90s. You had X-Men, which I actually didn't know about because I wasn't as into Marvel stuff. Superman and Batman were my top superheroes, and then in Marvel it was like Spider-Man And I kind of found out who the X-Men were, but I didn't know about the movie. I don't know why, actually. I think that's the year I went away to YWAM. That's probably why I didn't know about it.
Hmm.
About that later as well. But yes, it just escalated really, and it was an escape, and it was fun. But also some of these characters had really powerful stories. Like Batman sees his parents murdered in front of him when he's like 8 or 12 years old,
Yep.
and so like for anyone that has experienced grief, like and lost a parent, that is a relevant story, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't lose my parent till slightly later on. But like the whole story of Batman and his background made him a really interesting character. It was like as a teenager, I started to get into like story, character, and those being really, really important.
Hmm.
And those being the most important things actually in a movie or a comic or whatever.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there's kind of two thoughts here that are developing for me simultaneously, and they're curious. The one is this aspect of story and the development of themes around injustice and, I mean, really heavy themes of grief and what the characters go through, the marginalized characters especially. And I can definitely see how really being into comic books and a lot of these superhero journeys impact you as an adolescent, a young adult, and help develop your sense of relationship to others, and then impact how you go through your own grief and other
Mm.
things. That's one thing. I'm going to table that for a second because another thought that's been going on this whole time is that one thing you said about Superman right toward the beginning has been like gnawing on me. You said that first Superman movie, I think it's Superman 78. You said that he was a friend and someone who wasn't going to hurt you or belittle you or be mean to you or someone you could trust. And it's dawning on me that as a young autistic boy, that is rare. And it's rare to be able to find something like that, like find a person like that, that you
Mm.
just know is always going to be that. Because people are unreliable and with so I also am autistic. If your listeners are not aware of that and haven't listened to the episode of me talking about that, and people, autistic individuals or people with autism, we can sometimes be falsely attributed as naive or gullible,
Hmm.
particularly because we misread or miss the facial expressions, the intonation, the whatever of others, and then we get taken advantage of or whatever it is, right? And so we wind up getting bullied, getting whatever it is, right? The things. So yeah, to be able to find the character, find the person in the room, find the adult, find the friend who actually is good-hearted, who's always going to do the right thing. I can absolutely see how that is.
Mm. And
Yeah.
there is a kind of neurodivergent element to Superman, which I've only realised really in the last year.
Yeah.
It's David Corenswet, who played him in the recent movie, went on a podcast while promoting the movie which is an autistic podcast with an autistic host,
Hmm.
and that was one of the most interesting conversations I've ever had, like I've ever listened to, because it kind of I kind of got the impression that David himself is neurodivergent to a certain extent, and actually that Superman, the way he played Superman, was a little neurodivergent as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I related to this Superman so much, was because it felt like he was more human than the other Supermen that we've had. And there's Christopher Reeve was probably the greatest Superman ever, but there's a difference. He was more of a what's the he was more like separate from humanity to a certain extent. Like he
Mm.
was like, my job is to protect humanity. My job is to save humanity. My job is to take care of everyone.
Mm.
And we don't really see much of the humanity of that Superman, apart from at the end of the movie when Lois dies.
Yeah.
And that's when he breaks it. That's when it breaks the first time. That's when he breaks down. That's the first time you see him express any emotion. And
Yeah.
he just breaks down and he cries and he gets angry.
Yeah.
And like because it takes him back, and this is why it's such a good storytelling, because it takes him back to his father, that he couldn't save his father.
Mm.
And now somebody else he loves has died and he couldn't save them. And he's not going to have it. He's not going to, and he's willing to break his birth father's rules for him to save her life, because he's not going to stand for it anymore. Like, he's not going to let this happen again. And so it's grief in a sense that drives him to, to save Lois's life in that movie. But there is still, even so, that's a very human element of that Superman. But generally, that Superman was slightly different in the sense of he was, I guess he was more mature. I don't know what the, but David Corenswet's Superman, you see him getting quite emotional and passionate in the new movie when he's debating with Lois, and he's just like, people were going to die, and he doesn't understand why
Yeah.
Lois can't understand the simple logic of these people were their lives were in danger, and I had to protect them because that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's and it's a slightly younger Superman, to be fair. So but I liked that because it's more human, and it makes him more relatable, right? And that was the problem with Superman in movies, is that he wasn't relatable because he became more and more and more of and we saw this especially with Zack Snyder's Superman, more of like a god, like he was this distant god who was, like separate from everybody and wasn't human, and didn't have any humanity about him. And people can't relate to that. You like, my favorite versions of Superman are the ones where he is human, because that's his, and this is going back to the speech at the end of the recent movie. Like, Superman's greatest strength is not his powers. The reason he's Superman is not his powers. The reason he's Superman is because he chooses to be kind and good and to help people and believe in people and to be a friend. And he even sees the good in Lex Luthor. Like, he still believes, even Lex Luthor, who tried to kill him, like, repeatedly in the movie, even at the end of that movie, he has hope. He holds out hope for him. Like, that's like that takes a lot to do. Like, that's a very difficult thing to do. And that is who he is. That's why he's Superman, because he has all these powers. He could take over the world easily if he wanted to, but he doesn't. He just wants to hide away and be a journalist, and hang out with his girlfriend and have a regular life, and then just has to help people. Like, he doesn't want to kill anything. He doesn't. There's that kaiju in the movie where they fight the kaiju, and he's like, we shouldn't kill it.
Yeah.
And all
Totally.
the Justice Gang are like, oh God, like he's adamant, like, you shouldn't be killing things. Killing things is a bad thing, and he says, like, oh golly, and oh gosh, he doesn't swear even. Like, and there's an element of like naivety about that, but I also think there's like, it's just purity, like, and it comes from his adopted parents partly, but it's also because it's just who he is, and there's also an element of neurodivergence in there, like, because when you're neurodivergent, you can see the world in a very simple way. You have rules and structures and stuff which help you manage your day-to-day life, and I was always like that. I was always like, and I still am like that a little bit. In that, like, sometimes I get so frustrated. It's like, why can't we just all be kind to each other? Why can't we all be good to each other? Why can't we take care of each other? It's so easy, And a part of me knows why we can't do that, but there's still that part of me. And it's not a childish part of me. It's part of me, and I don't ever want to lose that. So that's kind of. I can't remember where we started this conversation. What was that?
No,
It's just that there's this humanity to Superman that I love about him, and that's part of what makes him Superman. And like, Christopher Reeve Superman was was human in the sense of like, he felt grief, he felt loss, he got angry, like, and he got emotional when it really hurt, like, uh, and Corin Sweat Superman is human in the sense of he says it. I get scared. I get up every
Mhm.
morning. I try and do my best every day. I mess up all the time.
Yeah.
Like, but that's being human. That's my greatest strength, and that's that. I guess that's why I love Superman, and it's definitely a kind of why I relate to him uh, because he's just wants to do the right thing because it's the right thing,
Yeah.
and I wish more people were like that, you know.
Yeah. So you definitely answered my question. And also you've kind of started to answer my next couple questions. So I'm going to combine them and reform them a little bit in that it more than sounds like, and I know this to be true because of our friendship, but it more than sounds like Superman in particular being a role model, the rest of these superheroes becoming a special interest over time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, these collections had an immense impact on you as a child, as an adolescent, as a young adult, for your character, and then also for how you related to the world.
Mm.
And so, as an autistic individual, let alone as a young adult. And so I would love to know a little bit more, if there is more beyond what you've already said,
Mm.
in regard to how that journey of this special interest of really developing yourself then as a young adult, as a young autistic male, right? Really getting into superheroes, really like diving into that world of justice, of what is right and what is wrong via comic books, of of their stories of injustice. Like, how
Well,
did that help develop you? And then also, how did that develop you into our broader topic here of becoming a great conversationalist?
good question. Uh, okay, so I'm going to talk about a couple of other superheroes as well as Superman here. First, Batman,
Okay.
because obviously my mum died when I was 23 years old,
Yeah.
very suddenly, uh, and she was only 52 as well herself, so she was quite young, and like, that's a big trauma.
Mhm.
It's a big trauma any time in your life, but especially when you're in your early 20s and you're barely getting started on your own life and you're still learning about how to navigate the world and still figuring out your own emotional stuff. And then you have this happen. And
Yeah.
and so I think like I've like that I retreated a lot into my faith at that point, into
Mm.
certainty a little bit. It wasn't very healthy. There wasn't any therapy around at that point. And we'll get into the YWAM thing because it's time.
Mhm.
But Batman at that point was relevant because I
Mhm.
understood then what it was like to lose someone at a young age, and I understood the anger that can bring.
Yeah.
And there's this in the Dark Knight trilogy started in 2005, which is 5 years after my mum passed away.
Yeah.
But in the last movie of that trilogy, which is called The Dark Knight Rises, and he's actually, I think, really underrated. There's this bit at the beginning of the movie where Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character is visiting Wayne Manor, and he wants to talk to Bruce Wayne. And Batman hasn't been around for a while,
Mm.
and there's some bad things happening. And he's telling him how he figured out he was Batman, and he said, like, you know what it feels like to feel angry in your bones,
Mm.
like. And I was like, that's literally what it's like when you're carrying around grief and anger from grief.
Yeah.
It's a special kind of anger. It's not normal anger. I don't know what to call it really, but just this stuff that's in your body, and it's not anger about normal anger. It's just this. You want to scream. You want to scream at heaven. You want to shout, and you want to you know, you're just, and it consumes you. Like if you're not careful, right?
Yeah.
I nearly let it consume me because after my mum passed away, I didn't get therapy, and YWAM, which we'll talk about later, didn't help at all. In fact, they pretty much ignored it and said I had a demon, which I'll talk about later. But and so this anger was like in me for a long time, and it basically took control of me. I wasn't in control of it at one point. It was so bad, and I was getting angry at the silliest things. You know, I was breaking stuff because I was so angry, and like furniture. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it didn't hurt anybody physically, but like furniture and things. I was, you know, like, and I was like, and it took an extreme incident for me to realize how bad it was. When I realized how bad it was, I started crying, and my sister came and gave me a hug. I said, "It's all right." You're like, you know, we all like, because they'd all seen it, obviously. And that's when I went to see a counsellor for the first time. But yeah, so I understood. So when he says that in that movie, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what it's like. And Batman, Batman is Bruce's way of processing his grief, right? It's not, and it's not a healthy way to process grief. See that, like like, uh, that's why, like in the movie Batman Forever, which like with Val Kilmer as Batman in the '90s, is really that's the best thing about that movie is when he realizes he can be Batman not because he doesn't have to be Batman anymore because
Yeah.
he's free from his grief, and so he's Batman now because he chooses to be, not because he has to be. Big distinction, but because like in that Dark Knight trilogy, like it becomes a way for him to process his grief, and but in the last movie of the trilogy, that's why the ending is so satisfying. He's finally got closure and healing on his past, like he's finally let go of his demons. Like the scene when he jumps out of the cave in The Dark Knight Rises is just it's one of the best Batman scenes ever because it's in the first movie he falls down a well as a child
Yeah.
and the bats attack him, and that's where it all starts, and then it ends with him and the well that he jumps out of looks just like the one he fell down
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
first movie deliberately. And it's really good storytelling by Christopher Nolan. And like, so when he's jumping out of that, it's not just him; it's that little boy who's
Yeah.
jumping out. That's why it's so powerful, and I still get chills thinking about it. It's so powerful. That's when he becomes a hero. That's when he's like, "But I'm not Batman because I have to be anymore. I'm going to go back and save my city, and then I'm going to retire and hand it off to someone else because he doesn't
Yeah.
need to be Batman anymore. Like he doesn't have to be Batman anymore. He can live his life." Uh,
That
and that
sounds very similar to what you described earlier about no longer having to be the protector of the family, but still enjoying caring for others and caring for the people that you love.
yeah, exactly that, and that happened through therapy.
Yeah.
You know, like I had a very good. I've had three very good therapists,
Mm.
and yeah, that was one of the big things. I've done a lot of uh, internal family systems therapy, and that has been so helpful for me because I've been able to personalize parts of my trauma and have a relationship with my trauma
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
sense, and do healing work with younger versions of myself, and yeah, like and part of that was letting go of that. Like it's not your job. It was never your job to protect everyone, take care of everyone. It's not your fault. Yeah, that scene in Good Will Hunting where he goes, "It's not your fault." That is so relatable for me, and I cry every time I watch that scene because it's just about me. You know, I just say it was. I thought it was my fault. I thought it was. I thought my mum's death was my fault, and it wasn't. Of course, it wasn't. But I had a part that thought it was because I didn't stop it. And it goes back to the first Superman movie where he's like, all those things I can do, all those powers, and I couldn't even save him. You know,
Yeah.
it's like wow. Uh, except I don't have powers. So, like, but that's it. Yeah, it's like, it was like letting go of, and I had my own kind of cave scene, which
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about on the show before, but I'll tell the story again. It's like I think it was 2017, and I launched my book. I quit my job to launch a writing career, and I'd written a book, and we published it, and it didn't sell that many copies. Didn't sell many
Mm-hmm.
copies at all. I mean, the people that read it liked it, which was nice, but like I had all these dreams, which were probably foolish dreams, and I'd set my whole identity on and value on doing that, and it had failed.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a mortgage, and I didn't have any more income, so I was doing temp jobs to pay the rent, or pay the mortgage, and I'd just gone for another job interview, and I thought I'd failed it. And I thought, I don't have a job. This temp job runs out next week, and I'm going to have to sell my house and move into my dad's house and live on his sofa. I was, and I had suicidal ideation,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember collapsing on the floor in my flat, and just like all my securities, all the masks that I put on since my mum had died, whether it was my faith, or it was my writing, or my job, or my house, like, or owning a property, like they're all gone. I had nothing left to protect me from my grief, and something of me did die that day. The masks died. The masks came off, and that was the beginning. That was the beginning of healing. That was the beginning of me getting free. That was eight years ago. Yeah, and it's been, and I'm grateful that happened, because it allowed me to get free and get healing, and and that was really important. But I needed that moment. That was the jumping out of the cave,
Yeah.
like, and creating a new life for myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, I mean, and then there's the other superhero I want to talk about with X-Men, because X-Men in the early 2000s started, like, the movies started coming out, and they were the early ones were really good, and there's been some other ones that have been really good, but they've been a bit inconsistent. But the thing about the X-Men, and the reason I love the X-Men, is because they're outside. The story of the X-Men is that the X-Men are mutants, so they're people humans that have evolved beyond what we are at the moment into having all these abilities. And what often happens in X-Men stories is that mutants get treated as an oppressed group, as
Yes.
outsiders, and they have to register, and there's loads of prejudice and hatred towards them, like there is towards oppressed, marginalized groups, like the LGBTQ community.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one of the reasons that the guy that played Magneto in the first X-Men movies, my mind's got Ian McKellen. One of the reasons that Ian McKellen chose to play Magneto was because he resonated with the X-Men story because he's LGBTQ himself, and he grew up at a time when that was illegal and
Yeah.
marginalized, and he resonated with that story because of that. And that's why I'm really interested about what they do with the X-Men now, because if you could set the X-Men in the world that we live in now, like, so many people could relate to that story, because
Yeah.
that is the ultimate, like, feeling like an outsider as a group of people. And, like, this is why, by the way, this is why neurodivergent people often love superheroes, comics, geekdom, like Doctor Who. I love Doctor Who as well. Similar reasons I love Superman, but, like, it's because they're all outsiders who feel like the whole world is against them,
Yeah.
and all they're trying to do is live their life and do something good in the world. And marginalized groups resonate with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They resonate with that, especially when things like That's why female superhero movies are so important. That is why we need to have LGBTQ superheroes. That is why we need to have more black-led superhero movies. And that's why Black Panther did so well, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, Wonder Woman did
Yeah.
so well, apart from them being great movies as well. They need to be great movies as well.
Totally.
But yeah, like, that's the appeal. it's not because they're childish. It's because people like us, like neurodivergent people, for example, find solidarity with these characters and like feel safe and feel like we're not
Yeah.
alone in the world, and that we can be heroes. You know, that they're heroes. You know, that we can make a difference in the world like they do, even though they're outsiders. And so that's the whole appeal of that. Like, and
Yeah. Provides hope.
yeah, it does, and solidarity. You know, and, it's that's why I love. That's why I still love all those stories.
Hmm. It's fascinating. You also mentioned in the midst of that a bit of a healing journey, a bit of your counseling journey. I think this is a great time to transition into that because, in tandem of growing up as an autistic individual, in tandem of the traumatizing events of your childhood, your young adult life, with the death of your mother, we can't also overlook other aspects of your journey that greatly impacted you as an individual, but ultimately helped frame even this podcast.
Mm.
So, in particular, spiritual abuse and then also your deconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've mentioned a few times YWAM and how we'd come back to it. So, how would you describe your initial journey and experience with YWAM in particular? The interest to work with them or volunteer with them,
Mm.
where you were at religiously at that point, how old you were. Yeah, how did you get started and connected with them, and what was your interest getting started there?
Yeah, I started thinking about it even before my mum died, because I had this thing in my head at that point that I wanted to be a pastor.
Mm,
And part of that was because I felt like an outsider and I felt
mhm,
like no one respected me. And that if I was a leader in a church, then everyone would have to respect me. Everyone would have to take me seriously. And I could prove everyone wrong.
mm.
So it wasn't a healthy reason at all. But you can make any reason sound like, oh, God's calling me to do it, right? Uh,
Yeah,
like, yeah, if you come from that background, you know what I'm talking about.
yeah.
Uh, but but like after mum died, it was like I didn't know what to do with myself. And like I had all these questions. I didn't know I had them really, but I was like, the things is that my faith as it is doesn't make sense to me at the moment.
Mm,
Like, not that I'd lost my faith, but like God needs to be bigger than this.
mm,
And I'm talking about the Christian God here, by the way, and
yeah.
it wasn't big enough. And I wanted to do something for God because I felt like first I felt like obligated to,
Mm,
because that's what church does to you. It makes you feel
yep,
like
yep.
you have a duty to serve God and you have to do something. And I think also as an escape from the real world. You know, like I wanted to get away from everything because I wasn't dealing with my grief very well, probably.
Mhm,
You know, and because I didn't even cry about my mum dying till we were praying for the funeral, which was 2 weeks
mhm,
later, and because I thought I had to be strong for everyone.
yep,
That was my job,
yep.
and that's how the anger started to manifest. And yeah, and I applied, and I used some of the money that my mum left me to pay for it, and yeah, it was. And I think I was I mean, I'll be honest, I was quite immature as a person at the time, and I was immature emotionally. I was emotionally intelligent. I've always been emotionally intelligent, but that's different from emotional maturity, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And I didn't know I didn't know life skills like everyone else did, because when you're autistic, and especially when you go through childhood trauma and your parents are not there and not teaching you life skills, and you don't know what they are. You don't know what you're meant to do. I
Yeah.
didn't know. Like everyone just like I didn't all the things that everyone just knows. I didn't know.
Mm.
I didn't
Like
know.
what?
I didn't know that you had to shower every day or every couple of days to keep yourself clean. Otherwise you'd stink the place out. I didn't know that that you had to like that. I didn't know how to wash clothes. Nobody had ever taught me how to wash clothes
Mm.
or why it was important to wash clothes. I know this sounds really it's almost laughable, but it's true. I didn't learn any of this stuff, and it wasn't because I was lazy. It's just I didn't know I had to do this stuff or why it was important. And there were loads of things like this. And so like I was naive in that respect, in the terms I didn't have life skills, and so I was a bit lost, really, like in terms of what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know what I was meant to do. I had got to the point where I suppressed my desires so much that I didn't even know what they were. Like in my teenage years, I suppressed all my desires. I trained myself. My desires don't matter. I don't matter. My life is not important. What I want doesn't matter. Like I don't matter as much as anybody else. I am the least important person. My job is to take care of everybody else and make sure everyone else is okay, and it doesn't matter what happens to me. That was the story I told myself.
Wow.
From 8 years old, pretty much, and no one ever. And I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that at the time.
Right.
It was an internal story, and so much was going on. I didn't have time to reflect on it at all. But that was what was really going on, and my mum was like, I was the person I was closest to in my family, and she'd gone. She was the safest person I knew, and I didn't know what to do. Really, I just got on with life and stuff. And I was in a job I didn't like, and I wanted to leave that job. I was getting bullied in that job, physically bullied and emotionally as well. It was horrible. It really was horrible, and I wanted to get out of there. So it was an escape, and I applied, I got accepted. They didn't, in my interview was about 12 to 18 months after my mum passed away. And they knew this because you have to put stuff like that on the form.
Sure.
They didn't ask about it. They didn't ask how I was. They didn't ask how I was coping. They didn't ask how it affected me. They didn't ask my relationship with God. They didn't ask how I'd had therapy or counselling. They didn't, nothing, none of that. It was none of that got said at all. Like, and they knew about it. It wasn't like I was hiding it. You can't hide something like that, right?
No.
It's gonna come up, like so.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, I mean, at the time, I didn't even think anything of it, which is bizarre when you think about it. But
like it should not surprise me, but yet it still somehow surprises me.
They were interested in me, what I could do for them.
Yeah, of course.
Which is give them money and give them my labour for free.
Right.
And not get anything in return. Well, I did get stuff in return, but you know what I mean. I didn't get, and I was so desperate to do it that I did it, and now I see that from the beginning was manipulation, weaponizing my grief, weaponizing my trauma, manipulating me into doing stuff for them. Whether they realize they were doing that or not, I don't know. I'm not going to make that judgment, because when you're in the midst of that culture, you can not know what you're doing. But and the people that were leading the team were actually decent people. So I still find it hard to believe they deliberately did that, maliciously did that. But that's what you did, and so they never asked me about any of that. And I signed up and I paid the money, and I actually sign up for a different one, and then that got cancelled after a week. And then I moved to another one, which was actually in the town I went to university. That happened, and 9/11 happened a week before it started, and I saw that on TV. I saw all of it right from the start. I saw the second plane hit the building, and I saw it all. And I didn't realise that was traumatizing me, but it obviously did. I think I was just in shock like everyone else when you're watching that. I can't describe what it was like to watch that. It was like watching a movie.
But it was only 1 week before you
But that was 1 week
so
before.
you carried that into your experience.
Yeah, again, they didn't ask about it.
And they didn't ask. Yeah, I was just about to say they probably didn't ask about it.
And so I just went to this year away, and there was discipleship training, there was written work to do, which I loved. Part of it was also to go to working class areas of Plymouth and evangelize the young people who came out on the streets in the evenings. I didn't want to do that. I felt uncomfortable with it. And at the time, I thought I was uncomfortable with it because I was shy and I wasn't good at talking to people, which is actually true. I wasn't good at talking to people at the time. But I also think it was my body telling me this is not right. Going out there, talking to minors, like we were early 20s, they're under 18, and befriending them with the intention to convert them. That's manipulation. And it's without their consent because they're minors. They're not meant to do that. That's ethically, morally wrong. And I think my body knew that and was telling me not to do it. And I have a good relationship with my body now, and I know that's what he would have been telling me. And it was my intuition as well telling me there was something wrong with that. And funnily enough, I was really good at praying, right? And I loved praying as well. And so I got out of it by being good at prayer. So I would just sit and pray every week. There'd always be a couple of people that stayed behind and prayed while everyone else went out. I did that because that was safer and more comfortable. And I'm glad I didn't go out and do that much because I would have regretted that for the rest of my life, and felt bad about that, and it was, so there was that, and of course, but while I was doing YWAM, the anger from my grief was getting worse and worse and worse. And we'd have like this weekly, meet up with the guys on the team, and basically it was three of us. There was the two of the leaders were men, and then there was me. Everyone else on the team was female. So us three would meet up once a week and just catch up and whatever, pray together and stuff. And one day they said, we talked about my anger because it was really evident, and they said it was a demon. Right. And of course, I believed them at the time because that was what I'd been indoctrinated into, right? And I didn't understand. It was grief. It wasn't a demon. It was grief, and it was unresolved grief.
When you say you believed them at the time, how did that impact you at the time?
I didn't feel shame about it because it wasn't my fault. They didn't blame me.
Sure.
They didn't shame me for it. They never shamed me, actually. But they just said, obviously, we've got to deal with this. We've got to do some spiritual warfare. So what happened is they prayed for me, and I'll be honest, I had a kind of transcendent experience at that point. And I felt this warmness on my back, and I felt like somebody was doing surgery on my back, inside my body. And it wasn't painful. It was warm. And they were cutting things out. And I remember that. I felt that. And afterwards, they said I looked stoned. I was so relaxed afterwards. So something happened. Something did happen with that. I don't believe it was a demon. I think I had some kind of transcendent experience, which my body had that experience, and it diffused some of the stuff that was in there. But it took it down from being toxic to being manageable.
It relieved some of your anger, but not all of it.
Yeah. It took the tension out of my body. But I still had anger.
Yeah, of course.
And it was
unresolved.
There.
Yeah.
And it still had unresolved grief, even though I didn't think I did at the time.
Yeah.
It was like the whole normal Christian thing of, now we've prayed for it, and everything's okay now. So that wasn't great, and I failed the qualification that you're meant to get at the end of the year, which pretty much everyone who does the course got, but I didn't get because I didn't take care of myself. I didn't I didn't, and I was immature. I was immature,
Mm.
and that did definitely come through. Uh, so, but also there were life skills that I didn't know that I was that I you know that were part of the reason for that. Uh, you know, the thing that came out of that year the most was my writing, because I'd always been good at writing. Writing was my thing at school.
Mhm.
I loved writing, and I took pride in being good at it, and I found it easy. And then I did some writing assignments during this YWAM year, and the people started talking about my writing and how good it was, and that people started saying you could make a living out of this. This is something you could do professionally,
Mm.
and so of course at that point you get into the kind of yeah, but it's got to be a God thing. You've got to use it for God. Well,
Of course.
yeah, you've got to be a Christian writer. You've got to write Christian books. You've got to write Christian stuff, and that's it. You have to do that. You have to, because you've got a gift. So therefore, you have to use it for God. Uh,
Mhm.
like, and again, I bought into it because that's what I believed at the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I started a blog, and I started and that was kind of the problem was that people's praising me for being good at writing filled the gap that my mother's love took in my
Yeah.
life.
Mm.
And again, I didn't realize this till later on, but like it did, and I got validation from it. So I started doing, and it started small. It began, and it became
Mm.
increasingly like I was doing writing for validation, right? And over
Did
time,
it
it got
did it
worse.
also not just fulfill the gap from the lack of your mother's presence and the presence of her love, but also having failed that final qualification, if that's, I can't remember if that's the term you used at the end of that year with YWAM, but like their feedback still from individuals that YWAM experience was still positive on your writing. So that was
Mm,
like a thing that you were able to
yeah,
still be good at, even though you
yeah.
weren't good at these. You know what I mean? Like it
Hmm.
was. I don't know. That's something that feels like my brain would have latched onto hardcore. Like if I wasn't good at these other things while I was doing that YWAM thing, but the people I was with gave me high praise for this other thing, my writing, I would have just run towards the thing that they gave me praise for. You know what
Exactly,
I
and
mean?
that's kind of what I did. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
and again, that was a two-sided outcome, because there were good things that came out of
yeah,
that,
sure. Yeah.
but there were really bad things that came out of that too.
Mm.
That is the road that ended with me in my flat,
Yeah.
suicidal ideation, everything started there.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
It started when my mum died, but really
Right.
the big seeds
Yes.
of that moment were laid in that year.
Yeah.
I mean, it was I was manipulated. My grief was weaponized,
Hmm.
and also negated and
Hmm.
ignored, and made to feel like it was irrelevant, like it wasn't a thing. It wasn't that important. My trauma, never talked about my trauma, never talked about my
Yeah.
childhood trauma, never talked about any of that, never asked me about any of that. I felt I was manipulated and spiritually abused, and had my mind twisted
Hmm.
to first to feel like I was a failure as a human being, but also that writing was going to solve all my problems, and it was going to make God pleased with me, because I was still at that point I still thought that God hated me,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, and that will get me approval with Him, you know.
Mm.
Because remember, Christian, like part of there's elements of Christianity which tell you that you are a bad person fundamentally, and that you have to make right with God or you will go to hell.
Yeah.
And that is toxic. But that's what I was being taught.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, writing will save you from hell. Being successful at writing will save you from hell. Like, it was it was it was horrible. It was horrible. Yeah, the outcome was all negative, and and it made my grief worse. It made it worse because we didn't deal with it, and it got buried and buried and buried and buried and buried, and uh, and it took control of me. This is what I've talked about in another podcast. If you don't deal with your grief, it will take control of you.
Mm-hmm.
You'll just become a passenger, and it will be controlling everything you do. Your motivations, your anger, your attitudes, your behavior, everything will be rooted in this unresolved grief, which has got out of control.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening. And again, you don't notice it because it's very passive dictatorship in a sense. Like
Yeah.
you don't see it unless you're looking for it and you're aware enough and understand grief enough to know it. You can't see it. I couldn't see it, and but
Yeah.
actually the good thing about that year is that I came out of it, and that's when I think 2 years later I read Rob Bell's Velvet Elvis.
Yeah.
And I read that book and I was like, finally, someone who says I can actually question God. I can actually question my faith. I can actually doubt my faith. I can actually do all these things, and it's okay. And I've been having these things in the back of my mind for ages since my mum died. These questions, and more questions, which I was scared to ask because you're not meant to question God,
Mm.
And that kind of detoxified Christianity for me. Like it took me away from like the evangelical Christianity that I'd had at university and maybe in YWAM a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and to a more progressive kind of Christianity. That was really like my deconstruction probably started when my mum died, but
Yeah.
the real deconstruction started then when I read that book, and that's when I started quietly progressing, doubting, questioning, unlearning a lot of things around my faith, unlearning a lot of things around the Bible and religion and everything.
And is this the point where you start the podcast, or are we not quite there yet?
This is 10 years before I start the podcast.
Oh, because I was going to ask. It
I was
seems
still,
like you've already.
I was still, I was, this is the, I was still toxified by the writing thing. I was still in that place, but I didn't know I was in that place, right?
Yeah.
So but that was, I guess, that was the path, like the path to starting the podcast and to having that
Yeah.
moment in my flat.
Yeah.
Like that was a big part. That was a big moment because that's where I started to diverge away from that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it was very small at first.
Mm-hmm.
It was a slow journey and
Yeah.
away from that version of myself. And it was too indistinguishable for a long time. It was really like when was it? Was I really started to realize, I'm getting a bit further away from everyone. I think it was around 2013, 2014, like 7 years, 8 years, 9 years later, even that I started to okay, I'm theologically way apart from a lot of these people. And I have a lot of thoughts on this, which I never say to them because I can't say it to them.
So I'm going to start a podcast
And
where I can say.
the podcast. Now, the podcast is related to this because what happened was it was about my writing. I had started publishing stuff, self-publishing stuff, and a couple of ebooks had come out that I'd
Yeah.
self-published, one of which had done pretty well, and I had a writing mentor who was helping me to build a platform,
Yeah.
and was giving me these dreams of being a writer,
Sure.
and he'd helped me a lot, right? And so I helped him out with a project, and I got him to read some ideas that I had for a book because I thought, well, I can trust him; he's safe.
Yeah.
And then he stole those ideas and used them to make money,
Yes. Yeah.
and that was a major trauma. That was my first writing trauma.
Mm.
That is when I was like, I lost a lot of confidence in myself. This is before my book. This is long before. This is like 2 or 3 years before my book. And that was a major trauma that I found. And I didn't, at that point, I didn't want to write as much. That's really when I stopped writing, to be honest, because the book that I eventually published had already been written at that point. I just hadn't published it yet. Yeah, it was a moment of like, I just don't want to write at the moment because I want to get away from this.
Yeah.
And then I had this curiosity about doing a podcast because I thought, well, I've always wanted to do one, but I'd never got a chance to do it. I didn't know how to do it, and I hadn't thought about, and I seen Rob Bell start a podcast, and I liked that podcast, and I thought, that's a fun thing to do. But that was definitely part of it. But it wasn't like, I didn't start my podcast till 9 months after he started his. But it was like a creative outlet that I could do, and unlike writing, I had no agenda with podcasting. I had no plan with podcasting. I had no career plan. I had no dreams. I had no desire to build a platform. I had no desire to make money. No desire to get anything out of it. It was just curiosity and just interest in doing it.
Yeah.
And that's how I started. So I bought a microphone and I used Skype and I recorded and that was my podcast. It wasn't anything more than that. It was literally that's it. It was just, random stuff. And I didn't know I didn't know where I was going with it. I didn't know how long it would last. I didn't know, I had no plan whatsoever. I didn't know where it would take me at all. And that gave me a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
Because there was no expectation. Unlike writing, it hadn't been this part of my creative life hadn't been corrupted by toxic religion and capitalism.
Yeah, definitely.
And people building expectations on me and putting demands on me. And also pathological demand avoidance is something that autistic people have.
Yep.
So, which can stop you actually doing things. And because everyone had told, I think part of the reason I found it hard to write, the further I got into the writing career thing, was because everyone was like, you have to write, you have to write, you have to do this, you have to do that. And I was like running, I don't want to do anything I have to do, I don't want to do. Once it becomes an obligation or a duty, I can't do it anymore. I'm not interested anymore because I'm not in control of it. And it's like other people are putting those expectations on me, and it's like I'm obligated to do it. And so I lose interest in doing it. Whereas the podcast has never been and still is not an obligation to me.
I love that for you.
Every year, and it's normally this time of year actually, I sit down and I think about do I want to keep doing it? Do I still enjoy doing this? Does this still bring me joy? Am I still loving it? Do I still have things I want to do with it? And if the answer is yes, then I keep doing it. If the answer is no, I would stop. Because I don't have to do this podcast. And I will never have to do this podcast. I do it because I love doing it. And that's it. And because I'm curious, and because I love meeting new people, and I love talking to people, and I love listening to people's stories.
Sure, yeah.
And making new friends through that as well. That's why I do it. That's it. No other reason. I'm not doing it to build a platform. I don't have a book to sell. I don't have a platform to build. I don't have anything I just love doing it. And that is all. And and that works for me. And I'm going to keep doing that. That's how the podcast is going to continue to be forever. If a day ever comes where I think, I don't love this anymore. I don't enjoy this anymore. This isn't bringing me any joy anymore. It's become an obligation or a burden. Then I'll stop. And that'll be it. But I don't think that day's going to come because I love it too much. I love talking to people. I love hearing people's stories. I love learning from other people.
Yep.
And I love the fact that I don't have to do this. Like, I don't even have a schedule that I have to follow anymore. I don't like say I have to do a podcast every week. I don't. I can do it when I like. I can do a little series of 7 or 8 episodes 3 times a year, or whatever I want to do with it. I don't have to do anything. I am not obligated to anyone to do this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or to do this podcast every week. I don't have to do an episode a week. I used to feel like I had to, but that's because I was enjoying doing episodes every week. In fact, during lockdown, I did like some points I did 2 episodes a week because I was getting interviews and I was loving it so much. But I can't do that now. But I wouldn't want to do that now. But lockdown was different. You're at home all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so. That was like where that differed from the writing, is that the writing had been kind of toxified and made into like this obligation and duty and like this kind of these demand for success and to make money from it and stuff, and had been toxified by this betrayal by my mentor as well, which was traumatic, and I had to have therapy for that. Whereas podcasting's never had that, and that's a very intentional thing as well. But I've never let it become that. And I don't want to ever let it become that. And that's one of the reasons I don't do it for money. Is because then there's an obligation to people that are giving me money, and I don't want that. I don't want to be controlled by other people. I want to control this myself. This is my thing.
Okay. Well, then we need to modify the shameless plug that we made earlier. If you were the person who was listening at the beginning of this episode and said, yes, I could sponsor this podcast, then a caveat needs to be that you don't have any requests of the host for specific obligations on how the podcast is made and when it's delivered and how frequently it is delivered, etc. You just freely sponsor the podcast. Thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah. just donate me some money on PayPal.
Perfect.
And say that now you can go and do this for a living. Like now you can do this without having to worry about money anymore. Like I can just but
well, you've already answered a bit of kind of the last question I was hoping to get at, which really is reflecting on how you see yourself now in contrast with where you were when you started the podcast. You definitely addressed that journey, but I do want to know more specifically then, how have the past 399 episodes and the guests therein impacted you?
Wow. That's an amazing. That's
so many people. That's so many conversations.
I don't even know how many guests I've had.
So
honestly.
many.
Like it's. I mean, it's at least 300.
It's at least been me and Becky.
Yeah, I mean, I've had quite a few people do multiple episodes. Like my friend Alexander Shire, who's a wonderful man, and of course you and Becky and Amanda Held Opel and Kat Dean, my friend who's a astrologer, tarot reader. And
we're going to stop here because we can't start listing too many because then people are going to start feeling left out. So,
yeah,
but to say the least,
if I've forgotten you, I apologise. Bell's been on a couple of times. His son Trace Bell's been on a few times. I think the same number of times. I think at this point. But yeah. So, but I am grateful for all the guests that I've had, and I have learned something from every single one of them. And one of the things that I did when I was starting the podcast is I learned a lesson from probably my view the greatest interviewer of all time, Michael Parkinson. He interviewed so many famous people, and he was so good that people wanted to be interviewed by him. It was the other way around. It wasn't, that's how much it got. So, but what he would do is he'd have questions, but he would let the guest talk. If they turned out there was an interesting story that came up, he would just let them talk. He wouldn't interrupt. Right? I mean, if he had another question that was a leading question from what they were saying, Obviously, he'd ask it, but like a lot of talk show hosts now, it's about them. It's not about the guest,
Mm.
and they interrupt and they and make like jokes, and I'm like, and I was like, I don't want to be like that. I want to be somebody who listens and lets the guest tell their story, and then I'll ask questions, but I'm not going to interrupt their flow when they're talking, when they're telling their story, because it's their story,
Yes.
and I want them to be able to just be free to say what they want to say, and be authentic with that. And I'm just here to kind of direct the conversation, guide the conversation, facilitate the conversation, like rather than it's not about me. This isn't about me. It's about them. And that was a big thing that I even from the start that I made a kind of little rule for myself in my approach, because because I thought that's how you get the best stories, and I think it is. And one of my guests, who's a very famous author uh, and speaker, and who I won't say the name of, uh, they I could tell a really funny story with this one, but that would involve probably saying who their name is. But like they were doing this big book tour, and I interviewed them in their hotel room, and they said at the end of the interview that they'd said things to me that they hadn't said to anybody else.
Mm.
And then they'd done a lot of podcast interviews for that book they were releasing, and they said that because they felt safe with me, and they felt that they could just be themselves, whereas they've been kind of putting on a mask for a lot of other people, and that was wow, uh, and yeah, and I still have this feeling they met their wife the weekend that that I interviewed them because of what I read in the subsequent book, and it was too coincidental, and I'm not going to say who it is still. And you have to figure that out, but you probably won't. And maybe I'll tell MJ afterwards who it is. But things like that, and I know people. I've had people on the show who never told this story before, anywhere,
Yeah.
to anyone, and they volunteered. They said like, yeah, I feel comfortable sharing it with you because I know you're a safe person. And I was like, wow, okay. Yeah, and that's been amazing. And I've had people on here. I had one person come on here, and the story they told ended up being a book that they wrote. And I think they decided to write the book based on how it felt to tell their story on my podcast. And again,
Wow.
I'm not saying who it is because
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I'm not into name dropping. But yeah. I learned how to be a better conversationalist. I also learned about more about marginalized groups that I'm not a part of, and ones that I am a part of as well. And so I've learned a lot, and I've unlearned a lot as well doing the show. And my beliefs have changed very much in the last 10 years as well. And I think the show has reflected that. And that's just a normal thing that happens. You should one of my things that I always keep saying to myself is that I want to always keep learning, always keep growing, always keep unlearning, and never stop doing that. I don't want to be the same person in 10 years that I am now. I want to have grown and healed and matured and changed and for good, uh, and that's healthy, So, yeah. I mean, I don't even recognize the person I was 5 years ago, yet alone 10 years.
Yes.
So, I mean, that was, and
Me too.
5 years ago was lockdown, and
Yeah.
the height of the pandemic, which is scary to think.
That's when we were getting to know each other really well.
Yes, I know, it's scary. It's that long away. But yeah, like it's been awesome, and I love doing it, and I love hearing people's stories.
Yeah.
It's and finding solidarity as well. Interviewing a lot of autistic people, interviewing some therapists, interviewing therapists who work with autistic people, and talking about ADHD and talking about trauma and stuff that I've similar to what I've been through. and grief. And so I find solidarity and I find safety through connecting with people and sharing their stories. So
Mhm.
it's another benefit of it. And again, that's not why I started doing it. It's not why I do it now, but it's a gift,
Yeah.
it's something that, and it keeps me going because it gives me energy to keep going because it feels like I'm making a difference.
Well, I may be biased because I'm a good friend, but I do love listening to your podcast, and I think it does make a difference. Particularly because I agree with you that the interviewing style is different from a lot of other podcasts. I do feel like I get to hear more from your guests because of the manner of them being allowed to speak
Hmm.
for longer sustained times, have fuller thoughts, say more of their story. And I've loved, since being your friend for almost 5 years now, um, and therefore listening to your podcast for almost 5 years now, I've loved watching it change over even that period of time and seeing it evolve into what it's become today. I think that makes me excited for what it can become and continue to become.
Yeah,
Um,
me too. I don't know what it's going to be in 5 years or 10 years. Imagine if I'm still here in another 10 years and you're interviewing me again, and it's 20 years since I started the podcast. Like that would be a bit scary if 800 episodes or whatever we've done.
I don't think it's scary because we
I
have
mean, scary. By
stories.
scary, I mean like wow, like how did that happen? Like, not scary as in oh no, that's bad, but
Yeah.
yeah. No, go on. What were you saying?
I was agreeing with you in the fact that like we have stories dating back to the dawn of time for humanity, and so there's a story every day to be told. And it would not surprise me if you're still doing this in 10, 20 years, because everybody has a story to tell. There's so much to still
Yeah,
learn.
yeah, yeah. There is. There's always things to learn, and there's
Hmm.
always more stories to share and more stories to hear, and I love that. There's endless stories. To
Hmm.
Stories are compelling because we relate to them. A good story will always be compelling. So whether it's true or whether it's a movie or a superhero movie or whatever,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
always about the story and always about the character, and the people involved in it, and yeah, and they're
Mm.
always compelling to me.
Well, I am going to put you on the spot and ask you one quick final question.
Hmm.
I have done this the last two times that I've been your guest, and I am now your host guest for
Mm,
your 400th episode.
yeah.
Um, because we carry similar grief, because we carry similar journeys. I like to ask at the end of each of my little episodes with you a similar kind of question. Um, but if your mom was still alive,
Mm,
and it's going to be a lot of ifs here, but if your mom was still alive and if she was healthy, physically, mentally, emotionally,
mm.
and therefore, if she was your host today instead of me, so
Wow.
if it was your 400th episode and your mom was interviewing you,
Oh my gosh.
wouldn't that have been amazing?
Yes,
Um,
it would have been amazing.
instead of, I mean,
And
beyond
X-rated as
saying,
well. As I would say it would have been X-rated because my mum was like, yeah, that's her personality.
well, aside from telling you how much she loves you, aside from telling you how proud she is of you, what's something she would have asked you about or something she would have talked about for your 400th episode?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. Oh dear. Um, oh, that's a really good question. Um, Gosh, what would she ask me? Um, I don't know. I think she'd just be happy that I had found a medium that I can express myself,
Mm,
and that I've been able to build a life for myself
Hmm.
with so many good friends and a wife, and I think. But what would she ask me? I don't know. Like, she probably asked me what's next. What are you curious about?
Was she future oriented?
Yeah. I mean, she was really smart
Mm,
and really insightful, and she had moments where she was really profound.
yeah.
So she would say something profound, like probably like, "What are you curious about next?"
Mm,
Something like that. I think.
yeah. Like who's guest 401?
Yeah. What's the next thing you're gonna make? What's the
Oh, like even beyond the podcast, what's the next?
Well,
Like,
yeah, I mean, like all the next, yeah.
yeah.
What's the next podcast? What's the next book?
Mm,
What's the next
hmm.
other creative thing?
Oh,
Script, maybe.
yeah.
Like what are you gonna do next?
Hmm.
I think
I
that's what.
love
And she would probably already know what it was
that.
but like, she would be asking me to get me to think about it,
Yeah. She would spur you on.
and whatever it was, she'd be proud of me for it.
Of course. That's her job.
She never pushed anything on me at all. She just wanted me to be happy. She wanted both of us to be happy, me and my sister to be happy. And whatever made us happy, as long as it didn't harm anybody else,
Yeah.
as long as it made us happy, then they would be, they would be happy.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I received that for you.
Thank you.
That's sweet.
This has been really good. I've really enjoyed this. Like it's been, I don't often get to do this. I don't often get to tell my story. And yeah,
Well, good. Yeah.
yeah.
Welcome again to your 400th episode. Congratulations.
Yes.
Thanks for being such a good guest.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll definitely recommend myself to myself.
I hope you have yourself back.
I'm sure I will. And we'll definitely have you back as well, I hope. So,
Yeah, of course.
And I actually got through this without asking you a question. That's a podcast host thing. Like that, you get so used to interviewing people and asking questions that when you get interviewed, you start asking other people questions.
Oh, that's
That's my
funny.
habit, and I didn't do that this time, which I'm quite impressed with. I don't think I did anyway. But, yeah. And yes, there will be more of these podcasts. I'm not going to stop. This is not the
Good.
final episode. There will be a lot more of these podcasts, and I'm excited about the future. Yeah. So keep subscribing if you're already subscribing. Tell other people about it. There's like 400 episodes now for you to scroll back and find and listen to. So there's a lot. Yeah. 10 years worth. Yeah. 10 years. I can't believe it. 10 years of doing. Yeah. That's the longest I've ever done one thing continuously, I think. I had one job which lasted 13 years, but that was like just different jobs in the same organization.
Oh. Whew.
This is the longest I've done one thing and been doing that one thing. So that's pretty amazing. And I'm
Yeah.
doing it. And
Good
who
on
knows?
you.
Maybe I'll be here in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years still doing it. Who knows? Yeah, we'll see. All right. Well, thank you, MJ.
Of course. Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. And you did a really good job. So, and thank you, everyone, for listening. This is a longer episode than normal, but I figure that lots of podcasts are quite long now, so people are used to longer podcasts, and you can always break it down into 2 or 3 parts if you want to take your time with it. So that's not a problem. And yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. And thanks, MJ, again.